was to provide an annual update on livelihoods in the country's urban and rural areas, so as to inform policy formulation and guide the strengthening of interventions. The strong interventions resulted in improved food security, with government being the main source of social support in the aftermath in terms of the erratic start of the 2024-2025 summer rainfall season. Enhanced social stability impacted positively on the health, education, and social being of households and communities. The successes scored by the Second Republic are in the context of national and international food and nutrition and strategies under the National Development Strategy 1, which is running from 2021 to 2025. The Food and Nutrition Security Policy, Sustainable Development Goals, and the Zero Hunger Strategy. Under the Basic Education Assistance Module, Treasury disbursed resources and will continue to prioritize the payment of BEAM funds. The proportion of households consuming globally acceptable diets increased in 2025, reflecting a significant improvement in the quality of life in Zimbabwe. Of major concern, however, is the realization that 35% of adults aged between 18 to 59 years are overweight and obese. There is therefore need to raise awareness and upscale screening for the early detection of diseases and the implementation of appropriate mitigatory measures. Furthermore, the proportion of households practicing the Pfumvudza Intwasa climate proofing strategy has increased from 47% in 2023 to 54% in 2025. The debt burden for most households decreased significantly. Going forward, social protection programs spearheaded by the government of Zimbabwe will continue to provide goods and services to the most vulnerable groups, such as widows, child-headed families, and persons living with disabilities. The able-bodied will be encouraged to undertake public works that create community assets as they benefit from various government support schemes. Cabinet considered and approved the measures to address informalization and payment systems, which was tabled in Cabinet today following a study visit to India that was conducted by the Ministry of Finance, Economic Development and Investment Promotion and other relevant government ministries, departments, and agencies, including the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe. Based on the insights drawn from the Indian payment system and broader financial inclusion strategies, Cabinet adopted policy measures to strengthen the government's digital payment ecosystem and facilitate formalization of the informal sector, including the following: putting in place digital systems to register all micro, small, and medium enterprises in order to come up with a national database, and reviewing of the current payment system limits regime across all payment streams, with a view to increasing the transactional limits and accommodating the activities of MSMEs. The measures also include incentivizing the informal sector to participate in formal banking systems, reducing reliance on cash transactions through introduction of simplified KYC norms, zero deposit savings accounts, and no cost to digital accounts tailored to micro enterprises, and implementing streamlined business registration, simplified tax filing, and digitized licensing procedures for the sector in order to lower entry barriers and administrative burdens for informal businesses willing to formalize. Other measures including creating incentives for registered businesses to enter the formal economy voluntarily, rolling out national campaigns to promote digital financial literacy, enhancing benefits in terms of formalization, and increasing trust in the payment ecosystem, and strengthening collaboration with private sector players in order to invest in low-cost payment infrastructure, especially in rural and underserved areas. Cabinet considered the proposed skills audit in the agricultural sector. The proposed audit aims to identify the current skills present within the Ministry of Lands, Agriculture, Fisheries, Water and Rural Development. The process will pinpoint existing gaps and anticipate future skills requirements in order to guide skills development initiatives and policy interventions. The agricultural sector remains a cornerstone of the country's economy, contributing significantly to the national employment, livelihoods, and food security and export earnings. The audit will assist policymakers in addressing skills shortages in an environment characterized by technological shifts, climate change, as the nation seeks to raise production, productivity, and enhance competitiveness on regional, continental, and global markets. In specific terms, the audit will provide a detailed mapping of existing technical, business, and soft skills across agricultural subsectors, including crop and livestock production, fisheries, water resource management, and rural development. Cabinet considered and approved proposals for the participation of the private sector in the distribution and retail of electricity. The electricity sector requires significant investments for power grid upgrades, expansion, and modernization, and the financing had been done mainly by the government of Zimbabwe. As such, the opening up of the electricity supply industry to the private sector in terms of involvement is being necessitated by the need for huge investment, as well as improved efficiency and the integration of renewable energy sources. The private sector involvement will improve services, reduce costs to government, and assist in the integration of renewable energy sources. The participation will also facilitate rapid infrastructure development, improve revenue collection, and enhance operational efficiency. Following approval by Cabinet for the active participation of the private sector, progress is expected to gather pace given the existence of enabling laws and regulations. In this regard, the Electricity Act allows for the licensing of secondary electricity distributors. The Zimbabwe Energy Regulatory Authority Act empowers ZERA to license secondary distributors and retailers, while the Zimbabwe Investment and Development Agency Act facilitates investor participation under terms that favor national interest. Cabinet agreed that a model should be implemented whereby electricity reticulation is provided as part of the cost of stands in new residential areas. Under the model, ZESA will provide the backbone in the form of a transmission line and a substation. Through a statutory instrument, a compliance certificate will only be issued to a property developer upon incorporation of electricity backbone infrastructure into residential developments. The model will enhance property value and improve its attractiveness. License will be permitted to distribute in terms of the framework that licensees be permitted to distribute electricity to communities upon demonstrating both technical and financial capacity to develop, operate, and retail electricity. The licensees will also be required to demonstrate compliance with regulatory standards and guidelines. The nation is further informed that the Zimbabwe Electricity Transmission and Distribution Company will partner with banking institutions for the electrification of communities. The banks will then recoup their costs through ZETDC billing system. Under the advanced net metering strategy, the private sector will provide electricity to off-grid suburbs utilizing solar with a backbone infrastructure expansion component that will ensure connection to the national grid in the long term. The private sector investors will recoup their costs through the ZETDC prepaid billing system. The model will facilitate expansion of electricity access to underserved areas and contribute to the goal in terms of universal electricity access by the year 2030. The nation is advised that the Rural Electrification Fund has achieved significant progress under its mandate to electrify rural areas so as to close the developmental gap between urban and rural areas. During the period the 1st of January to the 30th of June 2025, the Rural Electrification Fund has completed projects utilizing 3 technologies, namely grid extension, off-grid solar electrification, and biogas technology. The main beneficiaries of the program comprise 3,118 primary schools and 1,557 secondary schools, 1,046 clinics, 471 government extension office centers, 304 chiefs homesteads, 1,311 business centers, 873 small-scale farms, and 1,302 villages. The Rural Electrification Fund is therefore on course to achieve its contribution to the attainment of Vision 2030 under the Second Republic's all-inclusive development mantra. Cabinet received and noted the report on the tour of Liberation War heritage sites in the republics of Angola, Tanzania, Zambia, and Mozambique by the Honorable Vice President, retired Colonel KCD Mohadi, from the 18th of August to the 6th of September 2025. The regional tour of the selected Zimbabwe Liberation War heritage sites in Angola, Mozambique, Tanzania, and Zambia was undertaken as a strategic exercise to preserve, document, and honor the liberation legacy within a broader regional and Pan-African framework. The tour provided an opportunity to evaluate the historical, cultural, and political significance of these sites while identifying pressing gaps in their preservation, accessibility, and interpretation. It further created a platform to reinforce bilateral and multilateral collaboration with host nations, thereby strengthening cultural diplomacy and regional integration. The Honorable Vice President visited various sites in Angola, Tanzania, Zambia, and Mozambique. Of interest is the Bagamoyo Freedom Fighters Training Camp in Tanzania that operated from 1963 to 1975, training freedom fighters, including His Excellency the President Dr. E.D. Mnangagwa, the late Chief of Defense Comrade Josiah Magama Tongogara, the late National Chairman of ZANU-PF, Comrade Herbert Chitepo, the late retired General Comrade Solomon Juru, also known as Rex Nongo, and the late Commander Defense Forces Vitalis Zvinavashi, also known as Shebagava. The Honorable Vice President also visited the historic Mgagao Freedom Fighters Training Camp in Tanzania. The Mgagao Freedom Fighters Training Camp played a pivotal role in shaping the fate of the Rhodesian government. Zimbabwe's liberation struggle as it served as a crucial training ground for Zimbabwean freedom fighters, providing them with the necessary skills, ideological guidance, and logistical support to wage a successful battle against the colonial regime. Notable fighters that were trained at Mgagao Freedom Fighters Training Camp include the Honorable Vice President Dr. C.G. Dian Chiwenga, the late Air Marshal Perence Shiri, and the current Commander Defense Forces, General Philip Valerio Svanda, among others. Another site of interest that the Honorable Vice President visited was the Nachingwea Training Camp, which consisted of 5 regiments in terms of training of freedom fighters. It is estimated that a total of 15,000 soldiers were trained in 3 batches. That is the Songamberi, meaning the push forward, which trained 5,000 freedom fighters in 1976. The Fanya Haraka, meaning do it quickly, which trained 5,000 freedom fighters in 1977. And the Maliza, meaning finish off, which trained 5,000 freedom fighters in 1978. The regional tour generated comprehensive recommendations that emphasized policy, institutional, financial, and community-based interventions in order to safeguard the liberation legacy. Recommendations also called for a joint liberation heritage commission to focus on infrastructure upgrades, the integration in terms of education, tourism linkages, and oral history projects to ensure intergenerational knowledge transfer. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for presenting today's Cabinet highlights. We now move to the first round of 3 questions. First round of 3 questions, then we'll ask the relevant ministers to respond to those questions. Yes.
Thank you, Chief Secretary. My name is Latu Nyang from CTN Prime. I have 4 questions, which are directed to Minister of Energy. The first one is that, what is the current state of the units 1 up to 6? And what sort of improvement in terms of generating capacity do we expect after the rehabilitation? And the other one is, what is the timeline for this rehabilitation? And the last one is, may we get an understanding of the funding arrangements for this project? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief Sec. Wallace Rushito from the Herald newspaper. My question is directed at Foreign Affairs Minister, Prof. Murira. I don't know if this was discussed in Cabinet, but we have seen the United States moving to propose a bill that, if passed, will see the removal of SIDERA sanctions. So perhaps if we can get a government position and a comment from you on that side.
Thank you, sir. Ibn Mabunda, ZTN Prime. My question is also in the same vein. The same communique has a catch to it, which says there must be a payment of course, what was presented as a figure that will be paid to former farm owners, which runs into billions. So what is the stance that government is taking within that vein, and also what is government's capacity to meet that in a space of perhaps 24 months, as I would put it? Thank you.
Yes, we
just wanted to intervene. We want to discuss issues that were highlighted at the post-cabinet briefing session. Let's deal with that. We can also allow you to interview Professor Murwira, provide the dates and details, and you can discuss those issues. So we would want the post-cabinet brief to be populated with questions related to these particular issues that we discussed. We have nothing to hide, we are an open government, and we can provide the Professor Murwira. So if a further on any questions that you maybe will interest.
Thank you.
maybe, Honorable Minister, yeah, you can respond to the first 4 questions from one of our colleagues.
Thank you, Chief Secretary. The first batch of questions from ZTN about the current state of units, the timelines to complete the rehabilitation, and the funding modalities involved. Over to you, Comrade July Moyo.
Thank you very much, and I want to thank ZTN. The current situation is that of the units 1 to 6, there's one which has been out of service for a long time. This is Unit 5, which ZESA had started refurbishing, and ZESA has used about 50 million, but it still needed some more funding, maybe to the tune of 70 million. And the others were operating, yes, because of the old infrastructure. They are on and off, but we can say our average production of those 1 to 6 minus Unit 5 is that they were averaging between 300 and 600 megawatts, depending whether all of them are in service at any one time. But the most current today is that they were producing at 331 megawatts with 3 units. So the funding model is for Jindal to inject 455 million, which is monitorable by a joint committee to make sure that that money in fact reaches Zimbabwe through normal channels, banking system that has been assured in the negotiations with Jindal. And the timelines is truncated into several timelines. The first 4 years are for Jindal to finish the rehabilitation of all the 6, and they provided a Gantt chart which shows how sequentially they are going to do it. In the negotiations that has been given, and if there's any refinement so that both Jindal and ourselves are assured, that will be further refined. The second aspect of it is 5 to 7 years, where we think Jindal will start to recoup their investment, and then we have up to 12 years. We also periodize it in terms of the amounts that will come to ZPC and the amounts that are retained by Jindal. The last months to 15 years, because this is a concessional agreement which will last for 15 years. There are timelines with its own aspects of how it is going to be done. I cannot be specific about these because Cabinet wants some refinement, and our negotiators will go and look at it. But otherwise, this is an agreement which we think can revive the operations of Unit 1 to 6 which have an installed capacity of 920 originally, but as the equipment becomes aged, it cannot operate at that level. And we hope that this refurbishment will increase its capacity to operate to near optimum level of 920 megawatts. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Second round of questions. Yes, Theophilus.
Thank you so much, Chief Secretary. My name is Theophilus Chuma from ZBC. My question is directed to the Minister of Energy. There is heightened focus on renewable energy by government. And I understand from the last conversation, there was a target to improve generation from renewable energy to around 1,000 megawatts. And from your last visits, when you participated in Mozambique, you also had a special focus on renewable energy. Now that there is this drive, is there particular investment portfolios that you are working with from outside Zimbabwe who are participating in renewable energy probably within the next 2 to 3 years with your renewed focus on renewable energy? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Another question? Over to you, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Dr. Shwaya. The first and last question is coming from Theophilus Chuma about renewable energy utilization in terms of the renewable energy policy in order to augment power generation capacity. Over to you, Comrade July Moy.
Thank you, Chair. And I want to thank ZBC through you, Chuma, for keeping on asking about the renewable energy, because it is the way we can transition from a total fossil fuels to renewable energy. And our renewable energy that we are talking about includes hydro. And Zimbabwe, as you know, without climate change, we are already very high up in terms of percentage of using renewable energy. So what we want to concentrate on is non-hydro renewable energy. And this includes solar, it includes wind, and it includes geothermal, and it includes biogas. So in those areas, we want to move on the value chain and see a lot of players that can come in the non-hydro renewable energy. I hope that's what you are asking about. We remain seized with the question of hydro, which our center piece would be the Batoka Gorge, which we have to deal with Zambia in order to have that project come online. Solar is our second mainstay, and there are a number of companies, and I'm glad to say Zimbabwean companies have taken up the mantle. There are those companies that are engaged in manufacturing, that are engaged in mining, that are now using solar as part of their energy mix. They are doing so because those who are producing materials or commodities that will be sold outside, they will benefit from carbon credits, and therefore they are investing in solar. And we have already got some of them. Caledonia mine in Rwanda has already commissioned over 12 megawatts. Zimplats has commissioned 35 megawatts. They are building another 45 megawatts. And some of the ferrochrome manufacturers, particularly in the Midlands, are now coming up with solar as well. I just visited over the weekend one of those companies that has hired another company to supply solar at 100 megawatts. So the financing is not by the company that is producing ferrochrome, but by another company which wants to sell the energy to the ferrochrome. And there are a number of them that we are discussing with, because we gave them an incentive to say, we will charge you less than the cost reflective tariff, but you have 2 years in order to come up with your own captive power. And you can get your own captive power, those who are much more interested in selling their goods outside through solar, which is renewable. So we are working with companies like that. There are now financiers in Zimbabwe. We are not just relying on financiers from outside. Pension schemes, insurance companies, and others have seen that they can make money through renewable energy, and therefore they are investing in solar energy. I know of a local insurance company, pension scheme that is already investing in 100 megawatts, and they, in end of this month, they will commission 10 megawatts, and they expect to continue the journey to produce 100 megawatts, and they have started clearing. So there are a number of companies that we are talking to, either they are producing for captive power, or they are producing in order to sell to the grid. And we think that renewable energy, non-hydro, will end up contributing, as is indicated in our energy compact, about 29% of the demand of the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for responding to those questions. We have come to the end of today's post-cabinet press briefing. Thank you very much.